This episode is discussing Volkswagen, their Power Day. I've spoken about Herbert Diess in the past, his way of trolling Elon Musk, his way of going after Tesla by copying Tesla. It is effective, it is concerning. I want to discuss the pros and cons, how we as Tesla shareholders feel about it, how we should think about it from a sort of more general management conversation, and also what it actually means for Volkswagen as a stock price, and what we think Tesla can do in the near future based on all these initiatives. This is a Not Even Wrong podcast. It's March 16th, 2021. This is Delco. For the day, the fund is down 4.2%. The market is down roughly 30 basis points. For the year, we are now down 1.4%. The market is roughly up 5%. We're underperforming by 6.4%. Today's action is, I don't think it's related to Volkswagen. I think it's just generally the stocks like Tesla and also the CRISPR stocks, sort of the ARK stocks are down. This, to me, today seems like one of those ARK invest funds days when their funds are just down because of pressure, because of mechanics in the market. There's no actual news in the market. The news was yesterday. One of the big news items was that Jerome Guillen is now head of heavy trucking at Tesla, so that's a big deal because he was head of automotive. People think it's a demotion. I don't think it's a demotion. I think this is just the way Tesla works. You are good at this, you're gonna do this. You're better at that, you're gonna do that, and whatever the billions are that your underlying sales are, they could be more or less. It depends on your skills and so on and so forth. So we don't see this as anything else but just a typical Tesla move to put the right people at the right place. Now, let's talk about Volkswagen. Yesterday, they announced their Power Day, and that alone should put people a little bit, scratch their heads. Why, they're calling it the Power Day. Of course, this is compared to the Battery Day. At least they had the decency not to call it Battery Day. But it's about battery. The presentation is about their strategy in terms of how they're going to build batteries. It's the strategy of how they're going to build charging networks. It's the strategy about how they're going to expand also things like storage. So it's a very similar strategy to Tesla. I wouldn't say it's trolling in a sense like the trolling on Twitter, where Diess would say that he's outselling Tesla, or that he is trying to be as cool as Elon Musk and things like that. But if you really look at the details of the situation, you just have to scratch your head. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar old company from Europe, and all they're doing is just shamelessly copying whatever Tesla brings to the plate. You just have to scratch your head. And the way we think about this is, there's two ways to think about this. I think one way to think about this is, well, why should we make an effort? They're the market leader. We're second. We're just going to be relentlessly copying them. We're going to use the Samsung model, which has worked for Samsung. They're still around. Their management's still around. Their products are being sold. They're inferior, but who cares? They're being sold. This is what matters. And we are going to be around, because if we don't follow Tesla, if we try something else, we run the risk of being wrong, and then we're going to be completely wiped out. So this is an insurance policy from the sides of the management of Volkswagen to stay in the game. Now, to their credit, they've made that leap, and they decided that they will go with electric. So this is still not so. This is not absolutely a no-brainer. There are still companies out there, old car companies, that are thinking about, well, should we not, and all that stuff. Now, having said that, of course, there is a lot of risks with this strategy. And fundamentally, the risk here is that Volkswagen just doesn't have the expertise to really even copy Tesla. Now, let me say, what do I mean with that? Like, Samsung was able to create something that Apple was doing because Samsung is very good at chip manufacturing. So they're good at the hardware side of things. And then they took Android, and I think this is the weak point of Samsung. It's that they're stuck within the Google ecosystem, and that's just not as good as Apple. Plus, the integration is just not as good as Apple. So you could have a similar dynamic with Tesla and Volkswagen, where the Tesla integration of software and hardware is just much better than the integration of Volkswagen with all the so-called partners. And they spoke about the partnerships in this particular presentation. They spoke more about the power side of things, but the same applies to software. And I am sure that they will have an autonomy day or a software day coming up very soon where they're going to talk about partnerships. Partnerships on software means they're going to partner with people for the in-house in-car entertainment. They're going to partner with people for the autonomy side of things. They're going to partner probably with people like NVIDIA or Intel for the chip side, and then software side. Maybe they're going to use, maybe NVIDIA, maybe Aurora. There are companies out there that offer maybe Comma AI. There are lots of companies out there that want to be the software providers for the AI side of the car business. My point here is that this whole integrating of things, it is the bread and butter of traditional car companies. So there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel that the other side of the coin here would be, well, we're doing it on our own from scratch, and we're gonna learn how to do it and build an innovation stack around all this. That's not what Volkswagen is doing. Volkswagen is saying we're gonna have an ecosystem that is going to build the innovation stack, and we're just gonna be the integrator and the brand on top. It's fine. It has worked for them on the ICE side of things. The internal combustion engine cars are like that, where they are just the integrator. The innovation stacks were built all across the value chain, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, etc. They want to do the same thing. And the risk, I'm saying the risk is that that just might not work, that you will not have good enough products in a very high-tech intensive kind of value chain that is also very new. You don't have the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers that are sophisticated enough, and the products and the services aren't commoditized enough, so you can just plug and play and create your own sort of Chinese menu of things that you can play with. So this is the risk. The upside is that you can go, you have a direction, you can just follow Tesla, and you don't have to think too much about where the industry is going. Tesla is leading the way, and you're just gonna have to follow. That's all you have to do. Just follow Tesla. That's all you have to do. Nothing else. And again, I think forget all the egos that play here and the pride and whatnot. It doesn't matter. For somebody like Herbert Diess and their management, I am sure survival, they don't admit it, but survival has to be on top of their head. And now here are the two things that I think are, if I'm a Volkswagen shareholder, that I'm thinking about. Number one, what's going to happen to the residual values of my fleet? This is a concern that I have for all the car companies, and the reason we're not touching any of the car stocks. What is going to happen to the hundreds of billions of dollars of debt which are securitized through a fleet of cars that are obsolete because, number one, governments are saying we don't want ICE cars. Number two, even Volkswagen themselves are saying we're going electric. Now they're going electric, I think 60% in 2030. So let's say they have 12 million cars. There are going to be maybe 7 million cars. 7 million electric cars on the road with the Volkswagen brand on top of it, or Audi and Volkswagen together. So there's still plenty of millions of cars of ICE cars, but that's not the point. The point is what's going to happen to all these cars that are being produced in the next coming years, and how is that going to work? Like if I'm buying an ICE car and the value starts deteriorating much faster because of the electric cars that are taking away share from me, and also value share and in the used market share and all that stuff, how is that going to pan out? I don't know. The industry is based on residual values and assumptions of residual values that I don't see myself being realistic anymore. So this would be the first question. The second question I have is something we discussed yesterday: iterate and debug. If you want to, now this applies more to the software side than to the hardware power side, but it actually applies because power is also a software problem. In the end, software eats the car business, not just on the autonomy side, but it's also the power management, the power, the battery, the technology is going to be more software intense than anybody believes today. And I think the only way you can run a software company is by running it like a software project, and that is iterate and debug. And I haven't heard any of that. The culture of Volkswagen is not set up for that. So that would be my biggest question. If you want to succeed in this competition with Tesla, you have to use the Tesla methods. And the Tesla methods are iterate and debug and the reality distortion field. We discussed this yesterday. I just want to reiterate my thesis here is that if you want to compete with Elon Musk, you have to use his methods. This is what true disruption is about. This is what true, when fundamental new concepts and engineering practices start taking hold, then there is no other way to compete with somebody who's successful at those things than to use their own means. And this is not, I think this is a difficult thing. This is what Clayton Christensen missed when he wrote The Innovator's Dilemma. He spoke about, good managers that are somehow not able to compete and all that. I get it. This is all true, but the problem is that it is unbelievably difficult to use somebody else's methods to compete, particularly if you're a if you're a if you're an established player, because you're just gonna not automatic you're just gonna by default always go back to your own practices and concepts. You're not gonna want to use other people's methods, and that's the necessity here. And this is what we think is one of the biggest question marks, if not the biggest question mark, in this whole situation. It is, how are you going to do on iterate and debug? Are you going to be able to even do it? Because if you can't do it, I don't think you have a chance. This would be my biggest question, and this answers two questions right there. Number one, how do we feel about Tesla as shareholders? Well, we feel that Tesla has a huge leap forward here, is still way ahead, not because of their tech that they have right now. It's because of the kind of innovation and the way they're driving innovation. And there's another thing I want to mention, which is Tesla is the only car company which wants to build high quality cars at low cost and at speed. Those three things, typically car companies can do one of them, either high quality, either low cost. Speed has never been part of the car industry, and this is something, again, you can only do with iterate and debug. You need the reality distortion field to convince your engineers of a very difficult to achieve goal, but then the actual execution of the whole thing, the actual delivering of results, can only happen to iterate and debug, because that's the only way you can go step by step and build an innovation stack that eventually gets you to a very, very difficult engineering solution that you might not think is possible today. So iterate and debug is absolutely key, and we haven't seen much of that yet from Volkswagen. It might come, but again, this whole trolling situation, this whole copying of Tesla, it's getting tired, and while effective right now, it's helping the stock. I think fundamentally what you need to see as a Volkswagen shareholder is iterate and debug, reality distortion field. You need to see the speed. You need to see high quality, low cost, and speed. And we haven't seen any of that. We have seen hints of that, and this is using some of the concepts, at least in his narratives, particularly the cost situation. It's not very clear how they're thinking about cost, but they're definitely not open like Tesla, saying we just want a lower cost. Because of course they want to keep their margins, they want to keep the high end, let's say all these, they don't want to just lower the price and things like that. All of this stuff is understandable, but I'm wondering, this is me just wondering out loud, how is Herbert is going to deliver on those three vectors: high quality, low cost, and speed. And the speed is the biggest question. And if you, in the end 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if Tesla succeeds, becomes a multi-trillion-dollar company, and you have the other car companies trailing way back, it's going to be because they couldn't deliver on speed. This is, by the way, what Elon Musk said also. He said that the rapid innovation is our only competitive advantage in the end. Everybody else will catch up. It's rapid innovation, and that is iterate and debug. This is the kind of culture that we want to see from any kind of company that we think could be a serious competitor to Tesla. Thank you.